it's all well and good about getting the contracts and things like that, but actually there's lots and lots of studies that will explain that having a more diverse team will mean you will produce better products, because you've got different people around the table, different experiences. So then you've got more of those experiences and values to run past. So if you have people with lived experience of certain disabilities and you're making homes, for example, or you're making buildings, I can walk around that and think, well, yeah, that's fine, that looks fine to me. But then someone who's maybe in a wheelchair user, or someone with, maybe a different mobility issue, can walk that and see issues with that product, because that experience. I don't have that experience. I would like to think that I would pick up on some things. There, certain colours. People who have maybe colour blindness or something, certain things, they will maybe see different colours, and they'll maybe cause, if you've got all these colours in your building or in your designs, they can cause issues for people. I might not know that, you might not know that, but someone on our team who has that lived experience will pick those things up. So if we're having those different people within our teams, we've got more coverage of some of these things that may come up. We will make better products. You're making better products, people want to work with you. If you're the best in the business, people want to work with you. If you're a good company to work with, people want to work with you. You'll get more work, people working for you. So, there's so many ways that you can use that to your advantage in terms of profit as well as...
Hello everybody, Gavin Kyle, I'm the Gaffer. I'm back again with a great guest. It's Anne Okafor, and she's founder of Okaforia Limited. She's also a construction industry advocate at the Chartered Institute of Building. She's a lecturer. She is so many other things that we're going to get hopefully into most of it. But to be honest with you, we'd probably need about 2 or 3 podcasts to cover the extent of where we could bring things with regards to topics. But the main topic today that we want to discuss is, what does an inclusive construction industry look like for you, for your company, and for the industry at large, and has an expertise in this area. And I'm very interested to unpack with her how you as a company, or you as a company owner, can look into this particular topic in a way that's going to benefit your company, it's going to benefit your brand, and it's going to benefit your clients. And if you're not looking into this area already, Anne's going to explain to me and to you, to us as regards, why we really need to look at this area in order to improve the industry, but also to grow and mature the industry in such a way that we bring value to not just your clients, but to the whole industry at large. And that's a big topic, but there's no better woman than Anne to deliver the message of how we can do it. Anne, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gavin. It's a pleasure.
All the way from Scotland?
All the way, practically neighbours.
Okay, is it Aberdeen? Did you say that you're, or whereabouts?
No, I
in
stay in
Scotland?
Falkirk. I'm central Scotland, sort of equidistant between Glasgow and Edinburgh. So right
Very
there
good.
on the map.
So you're as cold as I am at the moment.
Yes, it's not warm here today.
It's pretty miserable at the moment. Anne, how did you get into construction? Where did this all begin for you in terms of construction, and why construction?
Okay, so a wee while ago, probably about 13 or 14 years ago, I was working in hospitality, and I went on holiday one year. Coming back home on the train, decided I cannot work with the public for the rest of my life. I need to go and do something else. I'd always wanted to do construction, but when I was younger, I didn't have the opportunity to go to university or college or anything like that. Straight after school, I had a period of homelessness. And I just didn't get those opportunities, in the traditional way that we kind of expect people to. We know that it's probably not as traditional now, but it used to certainly be that way, that you go to school, you go to college and go onwards and things like that. That didn't happen for me. But in my late 20s, I went back to college with the ambition of getting my HNC and getting a job, essentially. The more I got involved with the course and the lecturers and people in the industry, people kind of said to me, have you thought about university? Again, it was very much like, that's not, people like me don't go to university, people like me don't do that sort of things. And then, as it was, I'm at university again, now currently doing a PhD, but I've went through that honours process, got my degree, and then went on to a postgraduate diploma as well. So, but all the time I've been working in the industry as well. So for like the last 12 years, I've been working in the industry alongside doing those studies and becoming chartered also. So it's been a whirlwind of a trip into the industry. I'd always wanted to do something with something practical and that made a difference. Originally, when I was kind of younger, I thought about doing architectural technology. So that's kind of where I'd started from. But then when I applied to college, they started me on like a built environment kind of course. And then I got involved in more in the construction side, and I just loved it. So I just kind of followed that path.
Love it. I absolutely love it. And actually, I love the tagline on your LinkedIn, turning how into done with curiosity, courage, and care. Love it. Brilliant. Tell me, let's get straight into this whole inclusive environment. And before people turn off and go, oh my God, here they go again. It's a really big topic. Maybe give the viewers and the listeners how big a topic this is within the construction industry at the moment.
It's a huge topic, but I think, we say before that people turn off, this is a topic that actually affects everybody. It concerns everybody, and it should be everyone that's talking about this. We should all be at the table to discuss this. But it is huge. You can't really go into a room without there being some sort of diversity and inclusion conversation, and I think that's rightly so, because I do think we need to get better as an industry about what we do. We are making better moves towards that, but we're not there yet, and we've got a long way to go. And that, I think that's fair to say that. I don't think many people would disagree with that, but there's so much we can do, and hopefully we're going to talk about some of those things today.
Yeah, like let's hit the ground running from a point of view of like, is there a legal requirement to get this in place? Is there standards that need to be followed? What's the playbook for this?
So there is legal requirements to do these things. We should all be operating to the standards. Unfortunately, I'm hearing lots of stories of where that's not happening. We're not providing the things that people are legally entitled to, protections that people are legally entitled to. But we're also failing on a much bigger sort of part than that, because there's lots of people that aren't even coming to our industry because we're seen to be not inclusive and not welcoming to some people. And while some people do come in and make it through, some people are still put off by what they seem or what they feel the industry maybe doesn't offer at times. And that is true in a lot of cases. There is a lot of work, a lot of good work being done. But I think sometimes we often are seen to be an afterthought. Like, if we seem to be taking diversity and inclusion as an afterthought, we don't always shout about the good stuff that we're doing in the industry. And a lot of the times what people hear in the industry is the bad stories. Rightly so, we should highlight them, because if we don't know about them, we can't do anything about them. That isn't the whole picture. So I think we need to be telling a balanced story, but also recognise where we're going wrong so that we can fix the things that are going bad. And I think that for me is a big piece, because I think a lot of times we sugarcoat that and we put things down as banter when it really clearly isn't banter, and we don't categorise things correctly. So I think we need to recognise where we are not performing as good. Yes, celebrate the good as well, because we should be telling those stories. There is lots of good work being done, but like I say, it needs to be balanced.
So does the whole topic of diversity and inclusion fit into the culture program or framework? Like, where would this sit, or does it sit on its own as a standalone item or topic or policy?
No, I mean, diversity and inclusion has to be, you need to think of it like at the beginning. You need to think of it. It can't be an afterthought. It can't be something that we tack on to our programs. Like health and safety, you need to think of those when you're, building your programs. You need to think about your health and safety. So you're building your construction site, you're building your program. You need to think about health and safety and quality. when you're building programs of work or you're building programs within your organization, you should be thinking about health and safety as integral to those. It should
Correct.
never be an afterthought. It should be, is this fair? Is this process fair? You know, when we're making up new processes or even following processes we've been following for 20 years, you know, I think this is the thing. People think, oh, well, it's not broken, so I'm not going to go and do something about it. Actually, is it fit for purpose now? You know, it may have been fit for purpose 20 years ago, but is it still fit for purpose? Is it fair? Is it welcoming? Is it inclusive? Lots of people say, oh, well, don't apply. Have you asked the question why? You know, like, are they not applying because your job adverts aren't welcoming enough? You know, do they
Yeah.
use language that deters them from applying? Is the culture of your company known to be not welcoming to
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
or to other people? So it's not good enough just to say, well, women don't apply. Why?
Yeah.
You know, go that little further and have a look. And it's got to be integral. It's got to be thought of at the very start of a process as something that's key to it.
Yeah, because I can hear some of the screaming at the YouTube channel, and they're saying to me, ask her, is that a HR? Is it all just HR? Is it just HR and it sits with the HR department? Because that is the stigma that I get from diversity and inclusion, that it starts from the recruitment of people, and how we want to recruit the right people, and all of our branding and messaging that goes out has all got this diversity and inclusion, and we're a great company and we have won this award and that award and this certificate is on the wall for diversity and inclusion, and the optics look fantastic, but when you peel back the onion, it becomes a different issue. And then there's a separation there between what was said, what was the intent, and then what actually is the execution. So what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we take ownership for this as a company, if I'm a CEO or a managing director of a company?
So absolutely. So this has to start from the top. You know, it's not just one person or one job function's responsibility. Inclusivity is everybody's responsibility. Like health and safety, everyone is responsible. You have to think of it in that sort of way, like everyone is responsible for making someone else, not feel unwelcome, but it's got to start with culture from the top of your business. Your CEOs have to, lead with that in mind. They have to demonstrate it. It's not good enough to say, well, we do this and, our processes say this. Are you actually doing it? Because like I said, what's being said and what actually happens can be very different. And people get to know that what actually happens thing. That's talked about. And people then will make decisions about whether you're a business that they would like to join or not based on that information. So it's all well and good having the awards and, having the processes, but you actually have to do the things that you say you're doing, and it's hard to get some awards. I think there's a definite thing in industry as well where some awards are pay to play type of situations. So there can be some nervousness around people about, well, they've got that award. What does that actually mean? Like, what did you do for that? Who verified that? Like, what, because but there are lots and lots of awards where you actually have to do what you've said you've done in order to be able to get that award. So having a bit of discretion about what those awards actually mean can be a useful thing as well. Pay to play, is something that some people want to engage in, but knowing what awards you're taking part in, what you're supporting as well, it goes down to that culture as well, and people will read those things about whether you're using these awards that have been paid to play. People are pretty switched on about what 100%. You've been awarded for, and the kind of like what you've had to do for that. And there are lots and lots of awards, like I say, that you actually have to demonstrate that we've done these things. Like I know with the CIOB we have like an inclusion and diversity when they had their big CIOB awards dinner, and you had to demonstrate stuff for that. You can't just show up and say we do the stuff. Here's a policy that we wrote years ago. That's not that's not going to cut it. It's what did we actually do, case studies, testimonials, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So people they're switched on to that
Yeah.
non-spoken about person companies as well.
So I better put my hands up here, okay? Because it would be two-faced of me not to say it, but like I have come across tenders. My own company would have been submitting a tender, and you come across this question, the diversity and inclusion question, and I seem to be able to, well, maybe it's just me, but ramble off some sort of a paragraph to give it, like, really from an optics point of view. So that actually sounds good, but like you don't really get interrogated that much at the award stage, or it never really comes back out. Like, obviously you get scored on it as a tender process would, and I'm not suggesting that we would put down some random stuff. It would be stuff that we would have values for, if you like, so I'm just sort of curious as to, who's policing this area. Like, from the health and safety point of view, you've spoken about the health and safety executive, for example, in the UK would inspect and look and prosecute in cases of in regards to breaches. Who's the police person for, or the police group, or the police woman for diversity and inclusion?
I think it's difficult because there isn't really one specifically. There are people who have organisations that will help to get involved in these awards and things like that, but they don't necessarily police things in the sense that they wouldn't go in and do an inspection as such. Obviously, if something came to be where someone was discriminated against for some of the protected characteristics, it could be a legal case. Unfortunately, we know how that goes sometimes. People can be put into situations where their silence is bought, and that does happen a lot, so that they'll just sort of quietly go away. Sometimes legal situations will come out of that and they'll go through, but they can be kind of like, brushed off as something else, or the blame can be apportioned not supposed to be put. So there, there isn't something equivalent to like the health and safety executive that would look at these things.
Enforce it.
There are some sort of like self-elected like initiatives you can sign up for. So, for example, the CIOB has a inclusivity and diversity
charter
opt-in that you can do. So you can sign up to this charter, but it is opt-in, and you do go. You have to say, we're going to do this, and they'll check. I'm not sure to what extent they do check. I know they do checks periodically, and a certain amount of people, kind of like a chartered audit sort of thing. Like, if you're a chartered member, you get audited on your CPD type of thing. So I think they do people select to check that people are doing what they say. And obviously, if you're a member and you've signed up to membership, in any of the professional bodies, you're signing up to be an ethical professional person. So if you were seen to be doing anything, then there could be consequences with your professional identity.
And your brand, obviously.
And just your reputation, professional reputation, your personal reputation.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of the Modern Day Slavery Act when you're talking there as well, Anne. Like, so there is like serious legislation behind this in terms of breaches, like, and the Modern Day Slavery Act. Not that I'm an expert on it, but it is fairly strong in terms of what can come down the line if people are in breach and stuff like that. It's just what gets me is it's a problem. I've seen it play out where it's a problem too late, where maybe the client was not aware that this stuff was going on at a subcontractor level, and because you just don't see behind closed doors, and people are very good at sort of masking what's really going on behind closed doors. And in some cases, like a principal contractor, they have their eye on the ball of everything and the bigger picture, but then they just don't see some of this stuff that might be going on in terms of maybe labor issues,
these things,
pay and stuff like that.
I'm relating this back to health and safety because everyone really understands health and safety, to a much better degree. But you've got your hierarchy of, accidents and things like that in health and safety. So for like one fatal accident, you'll have like maybe a couple of red doors or something, and then you'll have, some more accidents. But then at the bottom, you've got like hundreds and hundreds of like near misses.
Yeah.
A lot of happens are these sort of like near misses of equality and diversion, or equality and diversity, are kind of like near misses. So they're like the everyday, what people call microaggressions, that aren't really a near miss. They are actually things that happen, but it's like death with a thousand cuts. So before it becomes a legal case, the big legal case, there's hundreds and hundreds of these tiny micro actions, microaggressions, tiny little things that build up, and then you'll get a couple of serious things, but they're not serious enough where you need to like report them to RIDDOR, and then you'll maybe get a couple that they need to report somewhere, but we still try and then you get into health becomes your fatality. So these big court cases and things become your like equivalent to your health and safety fatality type of thing. They come from lots and lots of little things that happen on the daily that we overlook. Sometimes people don't even know that they're, I don't want to say a victim, but sometimes people don't know that these things are happening to them because they happen so often. They're so minor, of compared to other things. And that's not to say that they're not inconsequential, but they mount up and they become these big things. And when we walk past them, this is what we said about culture and leading from the top, walking past all these tiny little things causes these big major things to happen. If we walk past all the wee minor things that you think, like in health and safety, that sometimes you think, oh, that guy's just been a whatever. Because it's minor, it doesn't really matter. But actually lots and lots of those little things become your catastrophes. They become the huge things that become things like Grenfell, that become things like major scaffold failure, that become things that kill people and that hurt people and harm people. Same in inclusivity and diversity, they become all these tiny little things become those major things that harm people. So we must not ignore them, we must cap them. And
it's funny you should say that about safety, because my own background is health and safety, but the safety kind of grew and grew as companies became more mature down through the years. Next thing, they bolted on quality, and then they started bolting on environmental. So then it became, rather than the SHE department, it was the SHEC department, safety, health, environmental, quality. Like, it's too much, obviously, for anyone that's thinking or talking about this. SHEQ, how could you manage a whole SHEQ department? And there is companies out there that do it really well, but you're talking about large organizations with massive resources to be able to manage that. But it does seem logical that you would fit the diversity and inclusion into the quality, but also the safety side of the business, in terms of a watchdog within the business to sort of, are we paying people the right rates? Are we on top of things in terms of the HMRC requirements for people, and what does their supply chain look like, and how healthy is the supply chain, and what kind of values does the supply chain have?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, when people are in a safe working environment, now safe means safe physically, but also safe emotionally and in well-being. Not being injured, and not, so that means not emotionally injuring these people as well, by causing harm to them, by making it difficult for them to be there, by making people work under conditions that aren't safe or aren't fair. When people are working in these, there's some people have to work in conditions where going back to modern slavery, where they're not safe, they're working maybe much more hours. When you've got people that in those circumstances working on your sites, also you've got higher chance of accidents happening, you've got higher chance of quality failures, because they're not, even when someone's being bullied at work, and I say even when, because that's not to minimize that, but when people are being bullied at work and they're not in the right mind, if you're not in the right mental well-being, that can cause a higher chance of safety issues happening, a higher chance of like quality not being up to the correct standard. People are, when you're struggling for survival and you're fighting, basic rights, that becomes your priority. That becomes that needs to be happen first. So then you can't concentrate on other things that may happen. You're maybe, if you're in your head thinking about how someone's treated you that day, then you're maybe not always got your eye on, is that ladder safe, or you don't have that mental capacity all the time to be able to do those things. So I think it's important that people understand that when you sort of like treat people badly, then you start to affect everything that goes on. But you also start to you're affecting them personally, but you're also having these sort of like side consequences where people aren't able to concentrate properly. They're maybe too tired. They're maybe unwell.
Mhm.
If people are being treated unfairly, it may be having an impact on their health and well-being as well. And if it's impacting their health, they may be struggling with sleeping and tired, and financial
Mhm.
consequences if they feel like they can't come to work a couple of days a week. And all
Yeah.
those things are not conducive to a safe environment, a quality building environment. So you have to kind of consider it, like I said,
Mm.
as a holistic thing. You can't just say, well, we'll tag diversity and inclusion on the end, and we'll make sure we get a couple of women to come and work for us. That's just not. It's just not going to cut it now. You need to do.
Yeah.
You have to think about it as: is this a safe place for people to work? Is it a
Mhm.
fair place for people to work? Do we treat people fairly? Do we treat people in a way that helps us to deliver these outcomes that we're trying to
Yeah.
achieve?
Hi guys, as you're enjoying this podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to let you know about my company, Coil Group. We're not just another safety recruitment agency. We're your partners in building a safer future. With over 25 years of experience and more than 1 million hours of safety work completed, our mission is clear: provide top-tier health and safety contractors tailored to the unique needs of your project. We also carry out on-site construction audits. From wind energy to power stations, utilities and engineering projects, our global reach and specialised expertise ensures your operations are not just compliant, but exemplary. For more information on how ensuring safety and sustainability of your products using our team of HSE contractors, visit coil-group.com or click on the show notes or video description now. I've also put a booking link into the description for you to click and have a one-to-one conversation with me. Now, back to the podcast. Enjoy and see you soon.
Well, there we go. We're 25 minutes into the podcast, and it was the first time you've mentioned about women in construction, and it just goes to show you that this is the bias that people probably have, that I see that they have. They look at diversity and inclusion and go, okay, let's get a couple of women on board, and that'll tick that box, and that's not the case at all. And I appreciate you getting to the 25 minutes before we actually brought in the topic of women, which we do need to discuss, but within construction. But it's brilliant to show that it's so much more broader than that particular topic. So let's just get into that in terms of where is it all now with regards to the balance of women and men within the workforce. And a lot of tier one companies have put a lot of effort into this area, and I know that some of them have done a really good job. And maybe give us, the listeners and the viewers, some sort of context as regards what's the gold standard for this, and what people should look out for, and give them some sort of a roadmap maybe.
Yeah, so I think the standard is to get the best people in the correct jobs.
Hmm.
And yes, we do need to encourage more women. We need to encourage people from lots of different backgrounds into the industry. So we should be doing that fairly. So you can't discriminate against people, and that includes men.
Yeah.
So when people are sort of talking about, I think they call it like reverse discrimination or whatever, that's still discrimination. You can't say, well, we're going to pick someone for this job because it's a woman.
Yeah.
That it's illegal to do that in the UK.
Yeah.
So you have to have a reason. Like based on, I think it's like there's very few exceptions where you can say this person for this job role has to be a woman, maybe around like personal care and things like that. But as far
Yeah.
as I'm aware, none in the construction industry. So I think people have that idea that, oh, well, they're just going to pick her because she's a woman. That
Yeah.
legally they're not allowed to do that. But what we can do as an industry, I hear a lot of time, well, women just don't apply to our company. Well, why don't they apply to your company? You need to dig a little deeper. Why are they not applying? Is something that you're doing unattractive to that
Yeah.
group of people? If you want to attract more women, how are you going to do that? There was a study, and I think it was, I never remember the name of the company. It was either maybe Scottish Power, British Gas, something like that. It was one of the utility companies. And they actually did a study where they looked at their job adverts and things like that. And they realised that the language that they were using in there was putting women off. It's quite a masculine kind of, you must do this, you must do that. Asking for, like, you know, a laundry list of things and expecting people to have all of them. Generally speaking, men will apply to something if they've got 60 to 70% of the qualities. Women will literally rule themselves out unless they've got 100. So wording it in such ways that encourages people that have got that, you know, you sort of welcome, say, well, if you've got, you know, some of these things. So you'll see job adverts with, like, you know, must have but desirable. So it's like, you know, we'd like this, but we understand that, you know, we might not get all of these things. Even just the language. So they had really strong kind of like technical kind of language. And when they started adding things in, like, you know, creativity, or, you know, we're looking for someone who can, you know, do all these things, a bit more sort of feminine languages, but it's still technical and still speaking to the job role. They actually increased their, you know, number of applications to like 50% or something like that. It was huge.
So
it just shows you that, you know, the way that you do things, you know, are you holding your job interviews at like school pickup and drop off times when predominantly women are still taken to be the main care person for children and for, you know, maybe older relatives and things like that. And it's not always that way, and a lot of men are now taking those roles as well. So by, you know, men sort of think sometimes that, and, you know, not just men, but people think, oh, well, you're doing all this to help women, but actually now more men are looking after children.
That's right.
Looking after women, you know, or partners who may be sick, or older parents maybe perhaps, or whoever, by making sure that we're not having job interviews at school pickup and drop off times, that makes it better for everybody, not just women. It makes it better for everybody who that time might be hard for. So yes, women are the, you know, the main sort of like carer for children at the moment still. But it is changing. So by putting in these, you know, adaptations to how we work, you know, and it's a minor thing. Can you change it to a couple of hours before that? Can it be, you know, lunchtime rather than 3 o'clock? You know, it's probably quite a minor thing for your company, but is it something you can, you know, it's a minor thing, but it makes it better for everybody. And I think that's the thing with a lot of things that people see around diversity inclusion. They're like, oh, you're changing it for women. No, actually, if we change it, it's better for everyone. It's not like women will benefit, yes, but also so will men. Like, men benefit if we have a nicer working environment. It's better for you too. It's not just better for me. It's better for everyone that works here. So everybody benefits when we can do these minor things that make things more comfortable. You know, can you is your are you doing job interviews, you know, at night time? Maybe that's not appropriate. Are you, you know, is it in a venue that's accessible? For example, we're talking about women, but also maybe people who have disabilities. Are you hosting your job interviews in a way that's inaccessible to people? Is it that your website's inaccessible so they don't even know that there's a job to be applied for? Well, lots of websites are still inaccessible. Can you apply in a format that people can engage with? So lots and lots of sort of like relatively minor things that certainly big companies could address, and some of them are definitely doing these things. That would be, from a company point of view, probably fairly minor to, you know, change a little bit, but would have huge impacts for the people that, you know, that need these things, you know, and it makes a better environment for everybody if you've got that option, you know, or if you say to, you know, you put in a line about, you know, do you need any, you know, adaptions? Everyone then has the option. It's not just someone who, you know, has a disability, or women, for example. It helps everybody to have that ability to have a slight change that may make that experience better for them. So it doesn't always have to be the huge things. You know, we think about, oh, I'm going to change the whole policy and all this sort of thing. It's just about getting people the best experience of your company, of your organisation, and that has to happen when people are working for you, but also for how they engage with you as someone maybe prospectively wanting to join your company, or as a client, for example. You know, if you're hosting site visits and stuff in a site cabin that's got stairs and no access, you're not being inclusive to those people, you know, and that all they become all those little minor things that build up to, well, the company culture at that company is shocking. They take no consideration for this, that, and the next. And most people are reasonable and they know you can't do everything. But when you're willing to do some things, people then maybe feel comfortable asking for something. If it's not something you currently offer, then maybe say, well, they're quite understanding about this. So I'm going to ask if I can, you know, and it just, that's culture, you know, so it's led from the top. And giving people that space to feel safe enough to have those conversations, because a lot of time we don't do that, and you know, it's put down, oh, here we go, diversity inclusion, I'm out of the room, and just, you know, people just walk off. But it's not, you know, it's not an attack, and I think sometimes people see it as an attack, and you know, it isn't. It's a conversation about just making it a fairer place for everybody to operate within.
It's, again, as you're talking, Anne, and you talk with passion, so well done. It really comes across. But I'm thinking, even the small guys, the small to medium enterprises, it's a bit of training to be done in this area. You know, I wouldn't say ignorant as a word, but I would definitely say that probably we're not as sort of educated, or we're not as up to speed with how to manage this, I think. And then people probably, this is my own opinion, but they probably just go away from it and go, you know, I'm not going to go there because, you know, that's going to open up a can of worms, as opposed to listening to somebody like yourself and having some sort of a confidence within the process and within the overall, you know, framework of just being a positive value set within your organization. I think people are afraid to if I'm being honest, I think people are afraid of actually taking this on.
I agree with you 100%. And I think people are afraid because when we have these conversations, it does become quite, you know, it can become quite contentious, I guess, and people get upset about things, you know, and I think this is why it's important that we have everybody at the table to have these conversations, because we need to know everybody's point of view, you know, but, you know, being inclusive and accepting diversity is at its very core just being a decent human being, honestly. You know, and every one of us can do that.
It's empathy.
You know, and every one of us can probably do that a little bit better if we tried, you know. So even, you know, people who don't, you know, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I don't have the knowledge behind this, I don't have the, you know, all the knowledge about what I can do. All you need to do is sort of, you know, to start off is to say to people, you know,
what's the right thing to do?
How can I work? Like, is there something else I can do? Is there something I can make? You know, I sometimes say to people, like, if there's anything I could do, let me know. You know, do you need any adjustments? You know, if you're coming to our meeting, do you need any adjustments? Can I do something that will make this experience better for you? You know, that's it at the core. And you're not going to be able to do everything for everyone, but just that willingness to at least just recognise that you may not offer something that someone needs. Can you do something different? And you're willing to do something different. That'll start it. And as you go along, you'll pick up things. The other thing to be really a decent person is you will make mistakes. You will mess it up. I've done it. Everyone does. We will make mistakes as we go, because we don't know what we don't know. I don't know other people's lived experience. And sometimes I will assume from my experience. I try not to do that as much now, but we sometimes come from a place that we feel is a good place, and we'll say something and it will be taken in a way that we didn't intend. It happens probably quite a lot, but what to do in that situation, what a lot of people do is, well, I didn't mean it, so I don't know what you're getting upset about. Apologise, acknowledge, you know, understand that, well, actually, just because you think that might be appropriate, that not everyone will, you know, and you know, take accountability for your shit, you know, like, if you mess up, own it and try and do something to fix it, you know. I'm sorry That was my understanding. I want to hear your part and actually listen to what someone's telling you. If someone with lived experience is telling you their experience, hear them.
Yeah.
Not just listen, hear what they have to say, because then you will learn and you will have the knowledge, and you will still mess up probably another 10 times, and that's okay, because you'll learn and you'll grow and you'll get better at it, and just being a decent human being. If you mess up, say sorry and fix it. It doesn't have to be much harder than that. At that base level of individuals trying to be kind to each other. A little kindness will go a long way.
Hello, gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business. Now, back to the podcast. Thank you.
I'm hearing them screaming at me as you're talking, Anne, because that sounds great and I get that, but I'm going to come at it from a curveball situation, if you don't mind. And I'm going to come at it from maybe a CEO, and he's thinking or she's thinking to themselves, that's all very well, but if I'm in an interview and someone says to the potential candidate, what's your intentions with family and having family, that gets them into a bit of hot bother with legals, and you're in, so it may come from a right place. It kind of might, the person might be saying, well, look, we need someone that actually need you here full time for the next 2 years, because this job requires you to be in here every day, because you're such a specialist. We won't be able to find someone else like you to replace you. It could be something like that, something, I don't know, whatever the scenario is. And the person might just have been educated or informed in the right way to, that person, the candidate probably shouldn't have been, I don't know, brought to the interview or whatever else. I don't know, but it does seem like there is certain elements of it that you need proper information and you need proper training in order to manage the risk.
100%. And in those situations, the staff, certainly if you're interviewing people, you should have some sort of training to navigate that, especially, even just from a corporate risk point of view. You should be managing these risks of your reputation, reputational damage and things like that, legal cases being brought against you. So even at that, from that angle, you should be managing these things also. So yes, being a good person, but I mean, it is illegal to ask questions about family and things like that. So you should be training your staff to a level that's appropriate for your business and for the types of job roles that you're working with. And certainly if you're interviewing people that you need to be on jobs, then there's ways of ensuring compatibility without discriminating against people. So it's more about ensuring compatibility without that discriminatory, well, what you think about family, because people can think what they want, that they may do something else, but what they choose to do it out with work is ultimately what they, that's really their business, I guess. But you can't control that, but you certainly can't exclude them because of their answer on that.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
You need to train your staff in how to deal with those situations appropriately for the type of business that you run. Probably less, we're talking about one-man bands and things like that, so they maybe have less of that kind of, corporate structure going on. But you still want to, again, from a reputational and legal point of view, have enough knowledge, and you can get that. You don't need to get all that from going on courses, and there are wonderful courses you can go on, but there are a lot of free things. There's a lot of podcasts that you can listen to, just to get pointers in the right direction. And there are free training courses as well sometimes, so you can look out for those types of things. Some of the professional bodies and that will give basic kind of awareness trainings for free. There are some sort of diversity and inclusion specialists that will offer these types of things, maybe like a 1-hour webinar as a awareness session that will give you more information. If you've got a specific scenario, then maybe they can direct you to something more specialist. So it doesn't always need to be like 5-day CPD courses and huge expense just to get
Yeah.
your knowledge up. It can be listen to a podcast. It can be
Yeah.
talk to someone else who's been in that situation. There are appropriate things where you do need full training for those parts of your job functions. And as CEOs and things, you should be ensuring that your staff are competent to be in those situations before you put them in them.
Well said. Well said, actually, yeah. And to get on to the other topic of profit, and people might be thinking, well, where's how can you talk about profit and diversity and inclusion? But from what I see, the large corporates are handing out contracts to building contractors and construction companies, and they need to demonstrate as part of their programs that they have an active and they have a flexible, or they have a direct sort of approach to dealing with this area. And you're not going to get the job if you don't have, if you don't demonstrate that you have this box ticked. And at the boardroom level, ESG is very, topical, and clients are not taking on construction companies that don't have this value set built into their organization.
Yeah, I think that is happening more and more. You're seeing people having to deliver on this ESG stuff, and I think that's a good thing. We should be doing these things, but again, it's about doing them rightly and not just doing them to tick some boxes, because that never helps anyone. Doing them in actually meaningful ways, purposeful ways, is how we should be doing these things. But also, when you're thinking about profit, it's all well and good about getting the contracts and things like that, but actually there's lots and lots of studies that will explain that having a more diverse team will mean you will produce better products, because you've got different people around the table, different experiences. So then you've got more of those experiences and values to run past. So if you have people with lived experience of certain disabilities and you're making homes, for example, or you're making buildings, I can walk around that and think, well, yeah, that's fine. That looks fine to me. But then someone who's maybe in a wheelchair user, or someone with, maybe a different mobility issue, can walk that and see issues with that product, because that experience. I don't have that experience. I would like to think that I would pick up on some things. There, certain colours. People who have maybe color blindness or something, certain things, they will maybe see different colors, and that they'll maybe call, if you've got all these colors in your building or in your designs, they can cause issues for people. I might not know that, you might not know that, but someone on our team who has that lived experience will pick those things up. So if we're having those different people within our teams, we've got more coverage of some of these things that may come up. We will make better products. You're making better products, people want to work with you. If you're the best in the business, people want to work with you. If you're a good company to work with, people want to work with you. You'll get more work, get more people working for you. So, there's so many ways that you can use that to your advantage in terms of profit, as well as just being a company.
I love it. And we're coming to the end of the show, so we could be here for another podcast, to be honest with you, on this topic. Couple of curveballs at you. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different in life?
Probably try and find a way to start sooner in the industry. But that's not to say I'm unhappy that I'm where I'm at, because I'm not. But I would have liked to have got here sooner.
Okay. Actually, that has come up quite a good bit as an answer. Funny enough. A favorite book and why? It doesn't have to be business; it could be anything.
So a book that really changed things for me was probably The Courage to be Disliked.
Courage to be Disliked.
Was very much. Yeah, it's quite it's a strange read, because it's written as a conversation between a therapist and a student who's learning. But it's really good in if you're a people pleaser, if you're always trying to make people sort of feel okay, and you're maybe saying no to yourself quite a lot, it can be a really good way of learning how to create distance between yourself and what they term in the book is your tasks and other people's tasks. So about having a little bit of distance between what is your responsibility to be taken care of and getting upset about and worrying about, and what someone else's responsibility is for them taking care of something. And they call it your tasks and their tasks. But for me, that was a huge book.
Wow.
Just something.
Love it. Something of interest about you that not the readers or the listeners wouldn't be aware of, or the viewers or that wouldn't be aware of. Maybe it's a hobby or something like that. That's wow, I never didn't see that coming.
There's probably quite a few, but one that comes straight to mind is I'm actually a trained tomahawk throwing instructor. Random one, so don't upset me. No, honestly, I learned to do this as part of my role with girl guiding. So
Okay.
I was teaching some, learning how to teach that as a activity for children. So learning children
Wow.
how to throw tomahawks. So I'm a trained instructor for that with girl guiding. So yeah,
You've just
I'm multi-talented.
you have just verified and validated why we asked that question and throw curveballs at people. I did not see that coming. I did not see that. It's brilliant. Anne, you're an absolute pleasure to have had on the podcast. I'd love for you to come back again in the future and give us some case studies and some sort of, an update in this area, because it's very important and it is very topical. And it's more topical than I thought it was before you came on the show today. And I'm sure plenty of the listeners and viewers will think the same. And I think for anybody that's out there, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a massive company to get involved with this area. It's something that has to be part of a value set within your business. It has to be something that resonates with your brand. And it has to be something that everybody is on the same sort of path in terms of, your culture. And if people want to get in touch with you, I'm sure they'd want to have that sort of, and can you come in and just give us a 1 hour talk or an online talk? I definitely think, that's where a starting point should be for people. But like, you let us know, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to get in touch with me is probably via my LinkedIn. So it's just linkedin.com/Anne Okafor, all one word.
All one word, and it's Okafor, but we'll put it in the show notes. And absolute pleasure. We wish you the very best, and thanks very much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care.